Dink and dunk. Oh, here he goes. Oh, wow. Meaningful slant.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth podcast. I'm Jack Smith,
I'm Shrikar Rajendran.
I'm Anish Gupta.
and today's episode, we're doing Hot Take episode number 2. We had a ton of fun doing the first one. We had some left over, so we figured let's compile them all into a second episode. Anish, get us started with your first hot take.
Yeah, so this is a guy that we don't talk about that much. And this is a guy in the NFC, a guy named Daniel Jones, who we haven't really mentioned that much. I actually saw this debate on who is better, kind of with the young quarterbacks like, Drew Lock, Kyler Murray are up there. Obviously, there's the 2018 class with Josh Allen, Lamar, Baker, Darnold, etc. But not really a lot of love to Danny Dimes. And I think this is a pretty bold one. I think next year, I'm talking about 2020 to 2021, Daniel Jones will be top 5 in passing yards and or passing touchdowns. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, first, I'm trying to think of the weapons around him right now. So you got Evan Ingram, you got Saquon, of course, out of the backfield. Sterling Shepard's back.
Slayton.
You're forgetting Darius Slayton.
Yeah, Darius Slayton too.
There's
He
a lot
could grow.
But see, that's my point. People are forgetting the offensive line that he had. People like you were forgetting Darius Slayton was there. There's a lot of people that are missing the pieces, and people forget how bad.
I'll say top 10. I'm not going to go as far as top 5 yet.
So hear me out though. He already had 24 dimes, and he had a 2-to-1 interception or touchdown to interception ratio, which is pretty good for a rookie. Obviously he has problems fumbling the football, which I think we can all agree needs to be addressed. And I'm sure he is addressing that in some way, shape, or form. I haven't really looked into it that much because, frankly, I mean, again, Danny Dimes has not been getting the spotlight that he did last year when he got drafted. So I think he's done enough to secure a starting job next year. He's done enough to kind of show that he can maybe lead this team into battle for the next few years. But my thing is he's always been the guy he's not afraid to throw the ball downfield. He's not afraid to take those risks. And I think you need that in a young quarterback in order for him to learn. I think Drew Brees kind of had that problem coming in. He was very conservative. He wasn't really a deep ball thrower. And I think that's why it took him very, very long to find his groove. So, but other quarterbacks like Peyton Manning, who wasn't afraid to launch it, look where he is now. So I'm not saying Daniel Jones will be in Peyton or Eli Manning, but can he be? Why not? And I think this is the year where he, chucks it a lot more. Obviously, the Giants don't have a lot to play for this year. I don't really see them making the playoffs. But I mean, their O-line has definitely gotten better with Andrew Thomas, Saquon Barkley. We're assuming is hopefully going to get another full year, going back to his 2018 season where he amassed 2,000 scrimmage yards. And I expect a lot of things from Darius Slayton. So, I think it's top 5 is not out of the question. Like we've seen those guys that why are they there? And maybe Daniel Jones is just one of those guys. But hey, I think he proves it. I think he shows why he's in that top 5.
I mean, it's interesting. I think that next year they could get in a couple shootouts with Dallas. The Redskins, people think could be not that good. And then we don't really know what's going to go on with Philly. So he could have some easy games this year. Only problem is I'm just not a big fan of his game. I think that he just didn't show me.
Like, what does he not do? Like, I don't see what he, like, I think his progressions in the pocket, I think are very, very good.
It's not, I agree with that. I'm not completely sure how much raw, pure talent he has completely as a passer and as a quarterback in general. Yeah.
Raw talent. I think he has a lot of raw talent. He's got a lot of talent. I think I think people put him in a bad spotlight because of where he was drafted. If he was taken at the 17th pick, I think that would have been viewed as an A+ pick by the Giants to pick 17. It was just the 6th spot. I think people looked at it as, why is he there? Why is he a top 10 selection? And to be honest, it's really close. I would argue that he had a better rookie year than Kyler Murray. I think it's a very interesting argument that you could make. Obviously he didn't win. He didn't win as many games, but when he came in, right, that comeback win against the Bucs was very, very impressive. And he's had games where he's thrown for a lot of touchdowns, albeit he's had a lot of games where he's had a lot of turnovers. But people are all hyping up Kyler Murray because he's finally got a target. People are forgetting Saquon's coming back. Year 3 Saquon, I think that's something that people got to watch out for, right? So can that help Danny Dimes a lot? Yeah. Andrew Thomas, while I didn't expect him to go 4, I still viewed him as the best true left tackle in the draft. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of talent on that offensive line. Will Hernandez is still there. They can still develop some guys down there in New York, and I think it's a very I would believe I'm starting to believe it more and more as I'm talking about it. Like I like Danny Dimes and the way he's going.
I think that in a couple years maybe he'll be there, but I'm just not a big fan of this Giants team in general. Really not sure what they
I'll say
have at
top
head
10.
coach.
I'll say top 10.
10?
I'm not gonna go top 5 though.
Yeah.
It's
If you were
looking
to,
at
okay,
all the other quarterbacks that I could put in my top 5, I would not put Daniel Jones
see,
there. I
that's the
could put
thing.
him. I could put him in my top 10.
I agree with that. But see, there's always that one quarterback you don't suspect. Like, did you really expect Jameis Winston to lead the league in passing this year? I don't think any of us did.
No, but
right?
I mean, think about it. You mentioned Saquon. I think with a healthy Saquon back, you'll see the Giants run the ball a lot more than Tampa Bay.
Saquon led the league in scrimmage yards his rookie year, but he only had 1,300. Don't get me wrong, 1,300 is a lot, but he still had 700 through the air, right? And I think Danny Dimes is a type of guy to look to his running back a lot. And when Saquon came back from his injury, right, he was going berserk with through the ground and through the air. So I'm not like there's always I'm telling you in the NFL there's always 2 to 3 guys in any list, any ranking that finishes the year, whether it's top 10 receiving yards, rushing yards, passing yards, touchdowns, whatever it is. There's always at least 2 to 3 guys where you just say, how the hell did they get up there? I did not see any of that coming. Like we got to admit that, right? In the NFL, there's always 2, and it's so hard to predict those 2. But if you can get one of them, like, I think it looks pretty good. And I think Danny Dimes is that guy. I think he's the guy. That's my guy that I'm rolling with for the unexpected wild card type of guy to, establish himself as a good young passer. And there's a chance if there's a chance that he could have a better year than Kyler next year. And I think people.
I know you love Drew Lock. Do you think he could have a better year than Drew Lock? Both statistically,
it's really tough.
It's overall.
Really tough. It's really tough because I think the one thing Danny Dimes is working for him is Drew Lock's schedule is very, very bad. Like, it's very hard. It's very hard. And also, I think the Broncos are reestablishing their team as a defensive team. Obviously, they're getting Bradley Chubb back. They have Von Miller, who's still very productive. But don't get me wrong, they still have offensive weapons too. If I had to put my money on it, I'd still go with Drew Lock. But if you gave me a question of Danny Dimes and Kyler Murray, I think that would be my kind of hot take. I think I'd go with Danny.
I'd still go Kyler over Danny.
I'm gonna go with Danny just because I think the position that he's in with New York, I think they're gonna let him throw the ball a lot more. Whereas Kyler Murray, there's gonna be a lot more spotlight on him, and if he makes mistakes, it's gonna get to him. I haven't seen Kyler Murray deal with mistakes before. I haven't seen that. I really even in college. And now I haven't seen him deal with the type of adversity that comes with being an NFL quarterback, especially with expectations. I think it's so tough to put expectations on these young quarterbacks. And to be honest, it's going to continue because the whole notion of young quarterbacks taking over has now started. If Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, these 2 literally lit up the league in their second year. That we're not accustomed to that in the NFL. I think we can all agree on that. We're not accustomed to seeing these young quarterbacks take the league by storm. But now, as an NFL quarterback in today's age, you're going to be expected to do that.
I had to take relating. Jack, you want to say something?
Yeah, can I cut in front of you because I had one also on second-year quarterbacks, but it focuses on a different one than Anish does. We all saw that Gardner Minshew played pretty well his rookie year, but not a lot of people are talking about him going into his second year, mostly because we can all agree the Jaguars are projected to be terrible. We even had Jags fans predicting that they would be terrible on an episode in the past. But I think that if Gardner Minshew was on a different team, the conversations we'd be having about second-year quarterbacks, specifically I want to talk about Drew Lock, would be completely different. I think that people predict that Drew Lock will have a great season this year, mostly because of how good the Broncos will be. But I think that if Gardner Minshew was in the position that Drew Lock is in, I'd be much more confident in Gardner Minshew than I would be in Drew Lock.
It's subjective because when you got to think about what team he's going to, what team you're going to place him on, depending on that, potentially. But
I think Jack's asking you to take a side. I'm going to take a side. I'm going to go full send here. I'm going to say straight up no. I like Drew Lock more than Gardner Minshew. I think
between Drew Lock and Gardner Minshew, I'd take Drew Lock.
You can make all the potentially, I think, like kind of arguments you want. Like, yeah, it could happen, but I'm going to take a side here. I'm going to say no because, right? what Drew Lock did this past year with those 5 games, he did not have a talented roster around him. I'm not going to say the Jags. I'm not going to say the Jags roster was better or worse. To be honest, I don't think the gap between the Jags and Broncos rosters last year in those 5 games that Drew Lock played, I don't think they were that much different. I really don't. I think they were pretty similar. While the Jags weren't really fighting for anything, neither was Denver. Denver started off 0-4, or I think 2-4. They had a really bad record. I think they started off 0-4. You can confirm that, but I know their kind of playoff hopes were kind of down in the trenches. Come trade deadline, come the time Drew Lock started to take the field. So I'm gonna say firm no, because Drew Lock went 4-1 in those games, and they were pretty, like, some of them. I mean, level of competition, you could kind of make that argument. I don't remember the 4 wins he had, but keep in mind the Broncos, they didn't have the most, like, Deshaun Hamilton, I still remember, was dropping passes left and right. I believe the win against the Chargers was the most impressive that I can remember. Led a game-winning drive, and with Drew Lock, I get a guy who hadn't had the type of expectations, never really will. I don't think people are expecting Drew Lock to take over, right? Again, like you said, people are expecting it because of the team. I expect it because of Drew Lock, and while the Broncos will be known for having their stellar defense, keep in mind, I think, as someone who's gone 4-1, with pretty lackluster talent around him, aside from Courtland Sutton and Phillip Lindsay, I think he can do some serious damage. Now, it depends on the Broncos' O-line. I think their O-line is going to be a pretty interesting factor to look out for. I believe they lost Glasgow. I don't know if he was – or sorry, Connor McGovern, right? I believe he was the Broncos' inside lineman that they lost. So but between the two, I'm taking Drew Lock. I'm sorry. Gardner Minshew has done a lot for the Jags in his rookie year. Obviously, I think he had a pretty solid record. I think he went 4-4. I'm not sure.
He went 6-6. Yeah.
6-6. Sorry, something like that. But I got to go with Drew Lock. I just think his kind of play style, he plays less risky, but at the same time, he
threw one less pick over 5 games than
Gardner Minshew's name. I know
you did through 12.
Fair. No. I'm just saying Minshew, I think, rolls out of the pocket a little bit too much. It's a bit like, how do I say this? It's a bit it's like he's not in control of where the ball is going. Like, I know he doesn't throw picks. I agree with you. I know that for a fact. Gardner Minshew has not been known to throw interceptions, but he rolls around the pocket too much. He's a bit too loose with the football in that regard. And that's why I went with Drew Lock, because I think he's got more leadership intangibles than Minshew has. I think Minshew's just the flashy guy with the mustache, but Lock's got the leadership intangibles.
I think what you just explained was leadership. I mean, did you know who Gardner Minshew was coming into the year? Can you be honest with me?
No, okay. I didn't. But keep in mind, I didn't know much about Drew Lock either.
That's true. But at least he was second round pick. Talked about in the draft process. Minshew was not mentioned. He comes out. He goes 6-6 with an abysmal Jacksonville Jaguars team. The
team was not abysmal though. It
was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad.
Whoa. No. The same Jags. This is not the Jags team we're talking about now with no veteran leadership at all.
But they still weren't good last year.
They still had Campbell. They still had Fournette. Their offensive line was pretty solid. They still had Chark, right? Chark did establish himself as a really good receiver.
The only person you've mentioned that's not there anymore is Campbell.
Sorry, AJ Boye is not there anymore.
Well, AJ
Boye is not there
anymore. On the offense, it was mostly the same.
Telvin or Tevin Smith is not there. Obviously, we know why, but he's not there. There's a lot of veteran leadership that they lost.
But what about the offense? The offense was basically the same.
It's pretty much the same.
No, okay, but compared to the Broncos offense, is it really that much better? I mean, sorry, is it really that much worse? Fournette is better than Lindsay in my opinion.
Much better than Chark.
I don't think it's
Broncos had a tight end last year while he wasn't.
I don't think it's much better.
I would. I mean,
the only sure, fine. The Broncos tight ends, I guess, are better. Like Noah Fant, sure, I guess. Offensive line though,
receivers are better.
Offensive line, they're basically the same now. Not the receiving core. Receiving core, I give Jacksonville. Aside from Courtland Sutton, I'm sorry. From what I saw from Denver's receivers, I did not see
Patrick, Deshaun Hamilton.
Deshaun Hamilton, exactly. A guy who I saw drop a lot of passes this year.
On Jackson.
Huh? Chris Conley is not bad. Marquise Lee had his flashes. Keelan Cole as well. They have a pretty decent receiving core, I would say. In the grand scheme of the NFL, obviously those two teams are not ones that we should be talking about. But
that's true.
Compared to each other, I think it's very close, and I would actually give the edge to Jacksonville. Just overall receiving core.
My argument is that a quarterback in Gardner Minshew came out relatively unknown guy, went 6-6, throwing right here 3,271 yards with 21, I think it was, touchdowns and 6 picks. If he was on the Denver Broncos, I guarantee you people would be higher on him than they are on Drew Lock right now.
Okay, he came in unnoticed, but that doesn't. I know he established himself, but again, it's what I've seen on the field, and I know. Look, 5 versus 12 games,
3,200 yards,
5.
21 touchdowns, and 6 picks in 12 games.
Okay, but 5 versus 12, I agree. It's not the biggest difference. And how can you say that with this Broncos team, you're expecting Minshew to? How much difference are you going to give Minshew? Are you telling me that he's going to give you like a game, 3 games? Like what do you see in Minshew
I think he'd be better than Locke, and it's
in
just
that specific situation, or just in any?
I think that just overall, my argument is if he was on, say Minshew was on the Cardinals or the Broncos, people would be regarding him as possibly the best incoming second-year quarterback because of the year he just played. It's just because he's on the Jaguars.
You could say, honestly, you could say that about anyone based on their team and their situation. Kyler Murray, I think, is getting the hype that he is because that's one I will agree because of his team. Drew Lock, people are saying it in the narrative that you're giving me, but if I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the Broncos because of Drew Lock. I think he is the reason why this team will take that next step because your defense can only take you so far. And yes, I know the Broncos won a Super Bowl because of their defense. But again, I've said this 100 times and I will say this again. They would have not won that Super Bowl without Peyton Manning. With Brock Osweiler as the quarterback, they would not have won those 2 playoff games and they would have not made the Super Bowl. So you need the quarterback. You need a quarterback there. And I'm saying Drew Lock is the reason why the Broncos are going to do well. Because your defense can only take you so far. I agree defense wins championships, but you've got to have at least a game manager or at least some type of quarterback that can finish the job. And I think Drew Lock is one of those guys. And you're asking me if Minshew would do better? I don't think so. I'm going to take a side here. You could make the argument, yes, but I'm going to take a side here and say no.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree. We're not going to get anywhere with it. But Shrikar, you want to give us a take?
Yeah, sure. Speaking of second-year quarterbacks, going to shift things over to the NFC West. I'm saying that the Cardinals are going to be the next Ravens. Because Kyler Murray, he had the most exciting rookie season that, not many people really watched last year. Sure, I mean, he took far too many sacks. Some of Cliff Kingsbury's play calls worked better against college defenses than against NFL defenses. But Murray's talent, Kingsbury's creativity led to some good moments for the Cardinals. And now Murray knows what he's doing. He has DeAndre Hopkins to throw to. Kingsbury has, I guess, a clearer idea of what doesn't work in the NFL. The Arizona defense is super underrated, in my opinion. I think it's pretty stacked. So I would look for the kind of jump that the Ravens made last year and the Chiefs made 2 years ago, both in production and in innovation. What do you guys thought?
So you're saying this year they're making that jump. Like you're saying this year they're going to make the similar type of jump.
I could see it.
Okay. I'm going to take a side and I'm going to say no.
I will too.
I don't see. Yeah. Because no way. I'm sorry, but those 2 situations happened because of and I'm sorry, Cliff Kingsbury, I have not seen enough to even put him remotely close to Andy Reid or John Harbaugh. I'm sorry. I have not seen enough. And I hate to say this, but yes, it could happen, but I'm going to take a side and say no because they're in way of a tougher division than the Chiefs were the year they took off. The Ravens were in AFC North. AFC North was decent, but again, the Bengals were fighting to be the worst team in the NFL. The Steelers had lost Big Ben, and the Browns obviously were just too dysfunctional to even consider. Yeah. So what
about the year after this one?
It's too hard to tell. It's hard to predict.
Sure, it's too hard to tell, but you got to take like this year. No, because again, the times that the Ravens and the Chiefs took the surge, no one saw it coming. No one expected it. No one expected Patrick Mahomes to come in.
No one's expecting the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's not true.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. That is
everyone,
but not the same jump as the Cardinals, or not the same jump as the Ravens or the Chiefs 2 years ago.
Everyone's expecting the Cardinals to make a huge jump. That is a fact. Everyone is hyping up the Cardinals and the Bucks, similar to the way they were hyping up the Browns last year. Similar to the way that other teams have been hyped up just because of their talented roster. And I'm here to tell you, talent only gets you so far. As a Browns fan, I would know. There's talent can only get like you need those three. One, the offensive line. I'm not sure how well it's going to be. The coach again, Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not sold on yet. I think he's a good young coach, but you're putting him in the same class as like Andy Reid and John Harbaugh, two of the coaches who I believe were fueling Lamar Jackson and fueling Patrick Mahomes to be these. Like for example, I heard somewhere that Patrick Mahomes. I don't say he's not a system quarterback. Hear me out. But he had a perfect system around him. I think we can all agree there. He had a very fortunate system to be in, right? A top 5 receiver in Tyreek Hill, a top really good tight end in Travis Kelce.
It was the best system you could get for him.
Very good. And you had Alex Smith to teach you. Like, that is a perfect, near perfect system for any quarterback to be in. Don't get me wrong. He's very talented and all. But, I mean, put another quarterback in and you would expect similar results. I'm not saying the same, but I wouldn't be surprised if you put, I don't know, another young quarterback in there, and I would like if Mitchell Trubisky went in there, I would still see the Chiefs making the playoffs. I don't know if they would have won the Super Bowl, but I would still expect them to win some games. So this whole Kyler Murray thing next year, I think it's a bit overhyped. I see 8-8 in their future, and could that make the playoffs in this whole 17 format? Very well could, but
also the NFC is
right
just
no. I don't know in the NFC.
The NFC is loaded. I have in my opinion. I think the Cardinals are going to finish 9th or 10th. Or sorry, there's 17 playoff, right? I think they finished 8 or 9. I think they're one or two short.
Agreed.
I think they go 8-8. And I don't see them having this whole Ravens job. I think that's it's very hard for any team to do that. Could one team do that next year? Yeah, there'll probably be a team that just
who do you
takes
think
an
will be?
Jump. Very tough to tell. I mean, you could say.
No, I'm just kidding.
You could say. I really don't know who.
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna say the Denver Broncos. I know I just kind of slammed
you just basically hated on Drew Lock.
I know. Okay, I still believe in Drew Lock. I think that argument's over. But that offense that they have created they've got Sutton, Judy, and Hamler. They have Noah Fant, who I think could take a step. They've got
Hamler too.
A top 3 running back duo. A decent offensive line. I think that's kind of their struggle.
Yeah, that's their factor, and I think that'll play dividends. I don't think that's why I think. Yeah, I think that's I think that's the difference between 9-7 and 10-6. I think I have them going 9-7, especially with their schedule. But I think I'll tell you a team that I do believe will take that type of jump. And that's Miami Dolphins. This is my take right here. The Dolphins will have a winning season. Hear me out. Listen, we've talked about it.
I'm not going to say this year. In 2 years, yes. Sure.
Not right. I want to pause on that kind of thing that Shrikar is saying before you go, Anish. I hate it when people try and predict. When you see posts, they're like, who will be the Super Bowl matchups for the next 5 years?
It's so hard to tell.
That may be the dumbest thing I've ever – you can't predict teams more than the next year or the next
year. What you're doing
I'm not saying they are going to have a winning season in 2 years, I know, but it's not going to happen this year.
What people are doing is they're basing it off the teams that took the jump last year.
Yeah.
Tell me the year before, would you have said the Ravens in the Super Bowl? No, you would have not. Like it's people are just basing it off last year. I'm telling you, I don't know if the Jets go crazy this year, go 12-4, people will say, oh, in 5 years they'll win the Super Bowl. I hate those things as well because it's too much recency bias. But back to my take about a team that will take
your terrible take.
I'm telling you. I know you guys think it's terrible. I'm telling you, dude. The Dolphins they have the 3 that I'm looking for. They have the coach. I still think Fitzpatrick and Tua combined.
I'm sorry, but Fitzpatrick isn't going to give you a winning season.
And where's the offensive line?
He did it with the Jets. He did it a few years ago.
But that doesn't mean he's going to do it with the Dolphins.
I never said I don't need a full season from him. I need him to do well in the beginning of the year, which he has done. He has always been the type of guy to do well in the beginning of the year. Honestly, this is the first time I've ever seen him be productive in the latter half of the season, which was last year. So he finally put it together, I guess. But if I can get a good Fitzpatrick for the first 8 games, maybe he starts to sell. Maybe he loses a couple games in November. And, hey, they take a chance on Tua. I believe in Tua. I believe in him. I think he's good enough to get them to the playoffs.
So there you go. Now you've got coach, quarterback. Where's the offensive line, Anish?
It's a lot better than what it was before. And they were protecting Fitzpatrick last year at the end.
The upgrade. They've got Austin Jackson, the pick that you didn't like. The picks that you didn't like.
No, whoa. I didn't like him compared to Josh Jones. I think he's still a solid tackle. And being from USC, I'm sure you've seen his flashes.
Eric Flowers, we agreed in the offseason episode, was a horrible signing.
but it's better than what they had. And what they
Because
had
what they had was the worst in the league,
exactly. But
and
what
it's
they
not that
had
much better.
okay, but what they had in the last 9 games gave Fitzpatrick decent protection. He was able to throw the ball against the Patriots. We're talking about the best defense in the NFL, right? I know I keep going back to that game, but again, it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. We keep talking about that game because Fitzpatrick was able to have time to throw the football, right? Devontae Parker does not get 8 catches for 137 yards without Fitzpatrick getting time to throw it to him, right? Usually against the Patriots, most receivers don't even get the chance to get open, right? Like that's just how it's been. And I know Gilmore is a very solid corner. He's the best, honestly, he's the best corner right now. But also you got to give him the defense credit for giving Gilmore time, right? Like, or not even, matter of fact, not giving quarterbacks time to throw the football. Fitzpatrick got that. And in the games that mattered, at least out of those 9, the games that they won, whether it be the Colts, whether it be against the Patriots, right? Those games that they against the Eagles, where they put up 37 points, they dropped 37 on Philly, where Seattle only dropped 17 on them, right? They were able to score, and not only that, their defense kept them in the game, and their defense got a lot better. I'm sorry, I know you guys don't like the amount of money that they spent, but the players that they got were at least better than what they had, right? Byron Jones is still better than what they had. Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, I think, are 2 very, very good corners, right? And I think they still have, I don't know if Aqib Talib is, I think he's a free agent. I'm not sure.
But they also drafted.
I don't think he's gonna play, but he still
They
gets
drafted
mentorship,
Igbenogany.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. They've drafted I don't know how to Igbenogany. I know they picked him in the first round, I think, at the end. And Jordan Howard, again, I really like the signing. I need him to get the majority of the touches. And I think he will get that in Miami. So I like the signing, right? So they have them. And again, you know how much I like Devontae Parker. You know that. So I think he's going to take another step, right? And he's got a solid cast around him. Albert Wilson is not bad. Preston Williams is someone to watch out for. I think
agree.
he breaks. Yeah, I think he breaks the 800-yard mark. I don't know if he's getting 1,000. I don't know, but I think he breaks the 800-yard mark. I think he kind of establishes himself as a really good wide receiver too. So, and also Mike Gesicki, the tight end, I think he's a very solid, underrated guy. I think he's top 15. Could ascend to the top 10. I don't know yet. So they have the pieces. And also, again, the AFC East is wide open. It's complete, like it's as wide open as it's ever been. I think we can all agree. And yeah, look, the Dolphins and the Bills, I think, are the 2 teams that really have a shot at. I know it sounds a bit biased to the Jets, but I genuinely think the Dolphins and the Bills are 2 teams that will be fighting for it. Right? I don't know where the Patriots are. I can't account for them, to be honest. I don't know how they're gonna do. Could they be one of the teams? Yes. I think the Jets, though, I mean, they lack. How do I say this? They lack an identity. Yeah, they lack an easy schedule. The Dolphins' schedule is a bit better than the Jets. I know they kind of go by the division, right? Because it's like they kind of play the same games. But I think the Jets have intra-conference games that are, I think, a bit harder than the Dolphins. Yeah. So I think they're gonna have a winning season, boys. I'm thinking 9-7.
See, you like to talk about quarterback, coach, and offensive line. I kind of want to mimic that and add pass rush, and so that makes it so the Dolphins really only have one solidified. For me, the coach, I think Brian Flores is a great coach. The only problem is, I'm not a believer in Tua. The entire draft process, I preach it. You agreed with me at some points.
But is he still a guy that is he still the second best quarterback in that draft?
No, I never said he was.
Who's better than him in that draft?
I already told you it's Burrow and Herbert. You know that.
I'd take Tua over Herbert.
Look, Alabama quarterbacks have not had a good track record. I think we all can agree on that.
Yes.
But what Tua was able to do in Alabama, it was never there before, right? Again, he came in the championship game as a backup and came back against Georgia, who
he also
had
played
a stellar defense.
with the greatest Alabama receiving core of all time, and he had so many offensive linemen that will be first-round draft picks on that offensive line, or first or second rounders.
I agree. He's had a lot of help, but to be honest, quarterbacks do need help to do well. And I think the Dolphins have given players who, again, I'm all about the players who know their role and know what they're trying to do. None of them are guys who are going to say, hey, I need the ball in my hand. Devontae Parker is not that type of dude, right? Preston Williams either. Running backs, Jordan Howard is not the type of guy to go out on a leash and just demand carries. Their offensive line is a group that works well together, right? I believe they still have Pouncey. They have a decent roster in there. And for what it's worth, they're still playing as the Hunters, right? Again, this whole Hunters versus Hunted thing. People are still writing them off, right? People, okay, you have no idea, right? People view them as the worst roster in NFL history, dude. That's a very like to be on that roster and to be viewed like that. That is very hurtful for a player. I don't know how it feels, but if I was a player, I'd be very pissed off to be looked at as the like in the 100-year history of the NFL to be viewed as the worst roster ever. That's very, very hurtful. And for what they were able to do as the quote unquote worst roster, win 5 of their last 9 games, that's very, very impressive. And they got so much better. I think you guys are you guys aren't acknowledging the amount of players that they got. They got so much raw talent from free agency and the draft. Like it's absurd the amount of talent they were able to accumulate over this one free agency period. This one off season. They got an insane amount. And it's all the positions that they acquired were better than what they had. And if they were 5-11, essentially, I don't really count the first 7 games because they were really tanking. Like, honestly, they were not in any of those games. But when they started picking it up, they were at 5-4. And with the talent that they have, kind of the schedule that they have, I can easily see a 9-7 season.
I mean, I completely disagree with you.
I'd give it a year. I'd give it a year or two.
Stringer said they'll be good next year, not this year, next year. It's his favorite thing to say. But no, yep. I just I just don't agree with you because I think their offensive line is still bottom. I'd say 25 to 32. They're going to be in there. I don't think drafting Austin Jackson, who I love as a USC fan.
Would you say their offensive line is better than their AFC East counterparts?
No, I still think they have the worst.
So you think the Jets have a better offensive line?
I do.
Jets, Bills, and Patriots all have better. I will give you the Patriots. The Bills,
name the 5 Dolphins offensive linemen.
Again, like I said, I think it's Pouncey, Flowers, Jackson.
Pouncey's not there.
Pouncey, I think Jawan James is the right.
He's in Denver.
He's on. Yep. Then I got 3. I think that's pretty impressive for the Dolphins. But like I said, it's not talent isn't everything. Names aren't everything. You know that. We all know that in the NFL.
Those names made up the worst offensive line in the league last year. And
they went 5-4. And
filled were Austin Jackson at left tackle, who I like, and Eric Flowers at left guard, who I still think is horrible.
Yet they went 5-4, and in the games that mattered, Fitzpatrick was able to get protection.
You cannot argue they were the worst offensive line in the league last year. You argue that?
But you're accounting for the first 7 games where they essentially were trading away all their pieces. Literally throughout the first 7 games, they were finding ways.
Let the quarterback get
No, they don't. They definitely don't. But they didn't have the mindset that they could actually win games. They were not fueled by anything. They were not fueled by any motivation, because if you're looked at as a terrible roster to begin the year, it's bad vibes everywhere, like just for an NFL team and just in general. If you're looked at as like no one has hope for you, you're looked at as, #tank for Tua the entire year. Well, how are you supposed to overcome that? Like, they were the laughing stock of the NFL for the first 7 weeks. It was terrible. I think they had like a minus 96 point differential, I think, for the first 2 weeks. It was so bad, right? Like there were talks about this again being the worst team ever. You don't think that kind of derails you or degrades you? Like, that's pretty harsh. But when they finally got their wins, they started saying, "Hey, we're not the worst team." And were they? They were not. They really weren't. And I think from the last 9 games, they were honestly the middle of the pack. And I think they're going to take this next step. Shrikar, you were looking for that team. I think the Dolphins are going to be my team. Dolphins, watch out for Denver, obviously. And there are a bunch of other teams that could. I think the Dolphins are the team that I'm looking for.
All right, but talking about, the Dolphins on a bunch of podcasts doesn't turn Jesse Davis and Ted Karras into, the next Jawan James and Pouncey at center. So
I think one player we never touched on was Mike Gesicki. I think he could definitely break out this year.
I told you. I think he's making top 10.
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. We had a ton of fun doing it. We're going to do another one. We've got some left over still. Didn't get through all the ones we wanted to, but that'll be in the next episode, Hot Take episode number 3. So keep your eye out for that. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate us 5 stars wherever you're listening, or subscribe to us if you're on YouTube. We have a website too at coldhardtruthpodcast.com. So make sure to go check that out. Spend a lot of time working on that. And we'll see you for some more debate hot take episodes in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.